Perhaps the most interesting thing about the Irish poet Annemarie Churreáin, apart from her poetry, is her hair. Shaved on one side of her head, her gruig, or more specifically her fult, an old Irish word that specifies the hair on one's head, is based on a hairstyle from ancient Ireland known as the Luain. The Luain style was mostly worn by outlaws. To adopt that style was to make a statement against law and order, so much so that a 12th century statute was issued by the English government, banning its people from following the practice of the savage Irish, who shaved their heads with long hair tied up behind. Annemarie Churreáin grew up in northwest Donegal on bogland named McInerney. From a young age she was steeped in mythology, stories and nature. One legend tells that on this hill 4 men met to decide who among them would convert the area from paganism. In other words, it tells of man's efforts to tame what's wild, to control what he does not fully understand. Currently, Churreáin has published 2 full-length collections, 1 special edition letterpress book of poems, and is due to launch another collaborative piece in the next while. In her debut collection, Bloodroot, many of her poems explore the experiences of silenced women. In the spring of 1951, her grandmother journeyed from Northern Ireland down to County Westmeath, where she gave birth to her father at the Castle Pollard Mother and Baby Home. Of her grandmother's experience, she writes, "In the same year that Noel Browne resigned as Minister for Health following the failed mother and child scheme, which the Catholic Church called anti-family, my grandmother was forced to relinquish her child to adoption. It is at this point in the history of the state that poetry as a form of protest began like a code to write and rewrite itself into the DNA of who I am." In traditional mythologies, man symbolises order and control, while woman represents chaos. But Churreáin shows us the ultimate futility of man's attempts to control things. If something is suppressed for long enough, it's only a matter of time before something gives. For example, a man might try to wall off an area of land in order to claim it as his own. But over time the ground bulges and shifts, the rain freezes and thaws, and eventually walls begin to crumble. As Churreáin writes, "I was raised in the shadow of men who wanted to conquer wildness." Many poems explore one's relationship with place. This is nothing new. But what Churreáin's poetry does do is show us that there is something in nature that resists man's nets of control and order. This isn't suggesting that the world will descend into chaos without these things, but it does show that there is a natural order to things, and that order and chaos must coexist. Churreáin shows us that everything has a voice, whether it's the many nameless women who are oppressed by Irish institutions, or the forces of nature, such as St. John's River from her poem Florida Wedding. Lapping water over water, the river declares, "Finally, you may swim." By understanding the wild forces of the natural world, we can come to learn something about ourselves. As Churreáin says, poetry has the potential to unbury us and restore us back to the landscape to which we truly belong. While nature is bound by laws, an innate part of it resists, much like the outlaws of 12th century Ireland.